Well, thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you and spend some time talking about Moodle today. We are here to talk about certainly Moodle in the eThink environment. We're both, I think I've been at eThink about the same amount of time, not too much different. I just hit my 3-year anniversary in January. So I've been at other LMS organizations. I was with D2L. Spent a couple years there. I was with eCollege. That's more on the for-profit side of things. I was there for 8 years. And as I looked at some of the closed source solutions, ended up over here with Moodle, and certainly have been really liking what we can tell clients, what we can help them do, and how flexible we can make the system. So kind of our approach today, I think, as we look at it, is just to kind of say, what can we do in the eThink environment with Moodle, and take all of that knowledge that we already have, and instead of kind of setting that aside and say, let's start from scratch, just say, how can we help you take that to the next level? So we certainly, with Courtney, is certainly a good part and a good example of what we want to demonstrate to you as that knowledge. Courtney has about 10 years of experience, and not that that's more experience than other people have, but has spent that amount of time just working with Moodle. And that's what we want to say. If there's a way that your folks want to do something with Moodle, we've got a team that really works at how can we configure that, how can we kind of figure those things out, are there configuration settings we can do. We were just talking about on the way over last night, just again, some recent plugins that come out last night. And we know in your current environment with Moodle rooms, there is sometimes more of a limitation on some of the types of things that you can use as far as plugins, because that's an environment where everybody is sharing the same code base. And so we don't have any of those. If there's a plugin out there that'll help your admin or your faculty do something, we have no limit as far as those things. But I'm a sales executive here. Courtney is our VP of services. Just some quick introductions maybe as to kind of the slant you're taking, so we can kind of know, if others join us, that's fine, but what kind of types of things are going to be of interest to you. So Vicki, if you just want to say a little bit about how you interact with Moodle, or just a quick introduction.
Well, I'm newly moved into a new position. I'm the associate dean for health sciences.
Okay.
And so right now I'm working with instructors on how they look at the courses and those kinds of things. So, and I came from culinary and hospitality programs, so I taught all kinds of classes in all formats. So online, hybrid, face-to-face, flipped, all those kinds of things. So
okay.
I've worked quite closely with Moodle for the last several years.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Good, and we'll approach some things as kind of that department head and be there. So, Brandon?
Yeah, so I'm an instructional designer, helping professors optimize their courses, creating a better learning experience for both the student and the teacher, trying to make the courses more engaging and
okay, easier to use, keep them involved. Good. And Chris?
Chris Cummins, and I'm Director of Virtual Learning. I did work in the continuing education department for a while, so I created a couple continuing ed courses with some SCORM packaging and PLD stuff that were built into the courses. Be curious to see how easily that got converted over from one Moodle site to another.
Okay, perfect. Stephanie?
Yeah, I'm Stephanie, and I'm the Associate Dean of Virtual Learning here at SCC. So I'm interested from both an admin and an instructor side.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, we'll take that and run with that as far as that goes. And, we always, and whether we're doing this, and Courtney and I team up many times, whether we're doing this by GoToMeeting, Zoom, or whatever, want to keep it back and forth. We're an organization, and I think you'll pick up on that quite a bit. We're problem solvers. I mean, we get it thrown at us, like you guys get it probably thrown at you, as why can't it do this? Why can't it do that? And so we look for ways to say, how can we help do those types of things? And so you know, we're not a company, as you talk to some of the other vendors, we're not a company that has to have a ton of overhead in developing software. We don't write Moodle. So to be clear, I mean, it's the separation between Moodle and Moodle Rooms. I mean, the same thing. And we'll talk about some of the successes we've had with schools who have said, it looks like you guys could do more for us because of your structure, et cetera. So as we talk about that, let's keep it interactive. If you have questions, or, you know, Courtney's going to get into the heart of it. I'm going to kind of give you a 20,000 feet kind of addressing maybe one of the first questions that you put on your plan that was out there is, you know, why would an organization want to come and work with eThink as opposed to whatever? So from a perspective there, taking a look. So I look back, I had worked with some folks, I think it was Jim a while back, right? Jim Mulford, was it a while back? Or am I thinking somewhere else? Somewhere else? All right. Anyways, I pulled back and I looked at some of the demo notes that were back there. And again, because of that approach of just kind of solving issues, I kind of prioritized what was some of the things that we've talked about. We did a presentation with Stephanie and some folks a while back, but again, starting up there with the idea of using plugins. There's some 1,300 plugins that are out there. I don't know how much everybody spends time looking at those plugins, but like I said, Courtney was just saying there's this one really exciting plugin that our team is pretty excited about that came out and came current last Thursday. There was a plugin that came out Monday. And so as an organization, when those types of things make life easier for our clients, we're monitoring plugins and we'll use any plugin that an organization would want to do. So when you start to take a look at those, again, obviously it's not something that you're going to open the door and just kind of say any plugin is allowed. I mean, administration, you're going to control that. But if there is a plugin that your faculty or group is dying to use or would help them in a specific department or whatever, we do not have any limitations on that and actually encourage you to do that. So again, the difference a little bit, just, you know, and Courtney can get more technical and we'll get more technical, is we put you on a single code base. So you're running Moodle here as if you would be running it yourself in that environment. You're not sharing Moodle with anyone else. And that's different than what you're currently doing. And so in that setup, we can say, okay, let's engage and use these. And then we will keep track of the plugins that you use. And when it's time to upgrade, just make sure that each of those plugins is ready for prime time. So that's a big difference in what you're currently doing and potentially with eThink what you could be doing. Okay? Any questions there? All right, the other thing that we hear a lot of times is it's difficult sometimes with schedules to keep training materials current, you know, for your faculty. And again, if somebody can know Moodle in the best possible way, this is one that we come across all the time. Just something that we attempt to try to deal. So is most of your training face-to-face? How are you doing that now? You mentioned working with faculty, or do you offer periodic Moodle training sessions, or how is that addressed today?
It's one-on-one. It's also larger scale events for professional development. The one-on-ones or small groups can be via email, via video, or face-to-face. Okay. And they can add more.
Okay. Yeah, they have training sessions set up with the instructional designers. I think they rotate on a yearly basis, and they have 3 or 4 training sessions per year.
Okay. Okay, one of the things, and again, we want to just make sure that nobody is, not, a happy Moodler because they don't understand Moodle. And so one of the things, again, is with the experience that you would have here, we have 4 self-paced training courses that we load up on your site. and we give you the keys to the car. I mean, if you want to change those or adapt those or add to them, subtract from them, but they can just be like on-demand type of trainings to supplement the things that you're currently doing in a face-to-face. So if I'm a faculty member and I say I can't, I haven't done something in a while and I just want to pull up a solution or one of the activities and know how to use it, they can pull that up. And we will keep that current so that when 3.4 came out, those courses became current with 3.4. You're not looking at training material that goes back and says, well, this is the way it used to work, but they're going to be current. So again, we'll make all of our training resources available. And again, we're not charging for those training. They're just part of what comes with working with eThink. I hope, like I said, that we can, as Courtney gets a chance to talk, she will be the guru here. And the nice thing about when we say ask the experts, this is all we do. We support Moodle. So as an organization, we're about 25 strong. We have just, I got a chance to job swap, I think it was a couple months ago, and every day our team meets, the services team meets. And if somebody has a question in the group and it's something that maybe Southeast might ask, it's like making sure we use the resources of the entire group to just say, anybody come across this, and everybody will contribute, or somebody will say, yeah, I was just looking at that recently. But it really is, we want to encourage folks to reach out, ask the questions. If you're channeling a question from faculty, that needs to be addressed, we want to make sure that is happening. We did talk, I think, a little bit at the last session about some of the reporting and some of the needs that you have there. I'm sure there's going to be needs that you would want from a department chair and some of those types of things. But we use a configurable report writer, a reporting tool. And we take the approach at eThink that if there's any information in Moodle that you want out, you tell us what the report needs to look like, and we'll build that report for you. So it's an unlimited reporting model. Again, from what we've been told from the Moodle Rooms folks that we work with, they do not make the configurable report writer available. I don't know if it's because of system resources or whatever, but we've had, I don't know what the latest number is, and Courtney loves to build a challenging report, but we've got over 100 reports that are out there that will come, if they're kind of based on higher ed or whatever, that will come self-loaded, and you'll have access to those. But if you see one of those and Chris says, you know what, I love that report, but could you add this? Just ping us and we will customize and modify that report. So I think in your world of where you're having to take Moodle data, move it over to Excel is what I think I heard on the last presentation. You may be able to not have to necessarily do that, because I think then when Moodle Rooms made a change, your Excel reports went out of sync as well. But there's a different approach. And it's up to you how much we go into that today, but that is one of our areas of expertise as far as integration. And that single sign-on, I think somebody said on the last session, is broken. So there's some issues there as far as that goes. But we'll tap into whatever single sign-on authentication you would want to use. And we have a real-time integration to Colleague. If you wanted to continue, or the IT people want to continue with ILP, we'll talk a little bit about what we do on our two-way, but if you want final grades to go up to Colleague, we do that with our integration. If you want to unhide courses automatically at a certain time, so either admin or faculty don't have to do that for a consistent experience, all courses can become unhidden at the same point in time. I think there were some high school classes that I looked back on my notes that you're asking the high school people to unhide, and that becomes a little bit of a challenge to make sure they do that when they're supposed to. So again, there are some things that we can look at, but these are just some of the things that I saw in some of the notes that we had. Does that trigger any comments or questions on any of those? All right, we don't have to tell you a lot about Moodle. You folks are Moodle experts. The only reason that I continue to pop that up there is the M in Moodle stands for modular. And we want to make sure that is the point that you're getting the absolute most out of using those Moodle modules. I mentioned earlier, 1,300 plugins are available. And so we help folks either, you know, whether they're going to use Google Apps or whether they want to use Office 365 and integrate, you know, all sorts of things, turn it in, whatever you would want to integrate to Moodle, we're going to, and we do help our clients do those types of things. So from a modular perspective, we have an unlimited, or we take an unlimited approach to plugins. So if there's something out there, and to me, that's still the beauty. I said I was at D2L for a while. I mean, in the D2L, the Blackboard world, basically there's a single entity that can modify that software, and that's that company. So if you guys want something, or want something from a closed source system, and you want the software to do that, you get put on a list. At D2L, we looked at that list, and you would prioritize that list and say, okay, is this thing that Southeast wants, is that high on our radar, or is it low on our radar? And you either go on a roadmap and you wait until they think it gets high enough priority. The thing that I've liked about open source is there's a community out there that are pushing all these types of plugins that are out there. If somebody sees something they want Moodle to do, everybody has a source code. Somebody can take it upon themselves. You'll be more likely to get a solution to what you're attempting to do in that environment. So that's why we continue to love open source, and I think it's great to do that. Just a little bit about then our model at eThink as to why I'm here to talk to you and say, why is Moodle and eThink different than what you're doing? Why have so many organizations? We've had over 100 organizations in 18 months or so migrate over to eThink. We have had, I'm not on the popularity list at Moodle Rooms, we have had 60 Moodle Rooms clients move in our direction in the time that I've been at eThink. So I think some of the folks there not all that happy with what we're doing, but that is one of the beauties of open source. If you want to look around, shop around, you can work with any Moodle partner that is doing the job. In 10 years that we have been supporting Moodle, no client has ever left eThink to go to any other Moodle provider. And so that's kudos to the people that do all the work behind the scenes. But like I said, 60 have come our way. We can put you in touch with Henry Ford Community College I worked with. They're about 13,000 as well. Jackson Community College, we're evaluating their options and decided to move from Moodle Rooms and come to eThink. So we can continue to put you in touch with those folks. But we will host the system. That's what we think is the easy part. But we take a fully managed approach. So we want you to reach out. We want to answer your questions. If your specific department is saying we want to go in a different direction, we want to offer a new kind of course, you know, is there a plugin that'll do that? We'll look from a consulting. I've mentioned that we want to stay with core Moodle. There are, again, Moodle partners that want to fork core Moodle code. We don't want to change core Moodle code. We'll use any and all plugins, but we don't want to change the main code like a Moodle Rooms might do. We run you on a separate code base. I've mentioned that. That means, again, there's no cost for any modules or plugins. It also means that, and this is also one that comes up often, is that when it's time for an upgrade, it's kind of a new concept. You tell us when you want to upgrade. And so you're not given the window and told this is when we're going to upgrade everybody. You tell us what's the best time for you to upgrade, whether that's twice a year, whether that's once a year. We like to keep you current. So you can take advantage of everything that's in Moodle, but we're not going to tell you, boom, now is the time to upgrade. And that again is because at eThink you're on a separate code base. And so we can do that. Any questions there? Anything? I know we want to get to the good stuff. I better keep rolling. To me, this is kind of how we do it. As far as what's listed there, I've mentioned that before. We use Amazon Web Services for our cloud hosting. It's an unlimited support model. So we're not going to start a clock and say what you want, but we also heard from on one of our recent webinars that again, in many cases, it's workload. How much does everybody have on their plate, and how much can they research some of the questions, etc. But if you want to channel faculty questions up, through the admin support and just pose those questions because you don't have time to search the blogs or, find the answers, we want to get those questions answered. So it's an unlimited support, it's an unlimited reporting. The free training courses, there's a student orientation course. So if you wanted all incoming freshmen to take a short course and understand Moodle better, there's an online orientation course. Part of our integration also says we can go back to colleague and say anybody who's a freshman, put them in that course. When they're no longer a freshman, take them out of that course. So we tie into colleague in order to do those types of things. There's a Moodle 101 for designing and building courses that we put out there. There's a Moodle 201 for administering courses and going to advanced Moodle functions. And then there's a Moodle admin course. All 4 of those are provided. So as you can see, it's all about customer support. The numbers on the screen, again, I have to say kudos to Courtney and the team. Those are our response times on our last audit. So in 39 minutes, we were talking with a customer human to human. As far as 39 minutes after they put in a support ticket, and 58 minutes on our last 6-month audit was our average time to close out a support ticket. And so again, we're striving to provide, I think, the best support for Moodle that is out there, and folks are seeing that. And however you have to currently talk to Moodle rooms, again, we've had 60 of them come our way. I've probably given 100 demonstrations, and so over time, we know sometimes what the support response time can be. And I'll just say it's not 58 minutes.
And is that for all levels of support from that instructor to the admin side?
We're doing what we typically call tier 2 support. So most of our schools still take the field the questions directly from faculty and then funnel that up to us. We can also make available tier 1 for our clients that do that. Typically, we see a lot of times that our eThink is easier to use than what a lot of folks have experienced. So some more of the questions can go away. Courtney will talk about using some of the tour capabilities in the new Moodle that's out there. We help do that from an ease of use perspective and some of that. But if it's a question on a grade book and you receive that as an admin and just want to fire that our way, we'll work on a grade book issue and I'll try to accommodate that. So, okay. All right, just for a little bit, we keep track, and I don't always show this, and so this is something new for me to show here, but we keep track of things, comments that come in from our clients, and we post that. I think it helps us internally to just kind of keep in mind that this is what we do, is we're out helping people find answers to problems. And so on our weekly update, these were the comments from last week. So I can let you read through those, and I took the clients' names off of there, but those are different individuals at our organization. And so, we get those types of comments, and that's the type of, I think, again, work that we do. But I just wanted you, I don't know how else to help you feel, what a Moodle partner should be doing. And so I think this kind of helps give you an idea when they have an issue, they feel confident that they can turn and get an answer to those. So, questions?
You said when they have an issue, they feel confident. Do you have any facilities for your office?
Yes, Mike.
regular tickets like
I think from an SLA perspective, I don't know what we commit to. Is it, I think by contract, we'll say 4 hours or something like that for support tickets. But again, on an average, when we did an audit, we're closing out tickets, and some of those, you know, certainly are going to take a little bit longer. A Moodle plugin that's a little bit longer, but if it's a simple Moodle plugin, you know, there are cases where somebody has told us they want a Moodle plugin implemented, and that can happen in an hour.
So you said 4 hours, that's to acknowledge the ticket that is put with your mock test, or 4 hours to actually stop working? Yes, okay.
Our last, and again, I can provide the SLAs as part of the contract. I should know what that, and I can look it up maybe when Courtney's talking for the details, what we commit to. But from an audit perspective, it was 39 minutes when we reported that. That's touching base with you to say, do I need more information? Do I need to gather more information? And 58 minutes to resolve. Thanks. That is what we, and we'll put you in touch with clients. You don't have to sit and listen to me. It is US based. We're Baltimore based. A lot of us work remote, but it is a US based, and it is the same type of people. Courtney is one of them. You might have been early or a little bit after introductions, but she's worked on Moodle for 10 years, and that's the kind of team that we have. So we'll circulate that, but it is kind of that environment where people, again, and I think from what we see, you're encouraged to put your questions in if you know that they're going to get a very well-researched answer and there's a possibility. So I want to make sure to give Gordon time. I know we got a question and answer session, but I just wanted to give that as a flavor. But again, that came from our internal update, and those were comments from last week. And then, as I mentioned, this was EduTechnica a while back, and certainly talking about, this is kind of an older quote, but just the fact that, again, we're a Moodle partner here in the US. I think because of our expertise, Moodle headquarters, we're a Moodle partner in Canada, and we're the first Moodle partner in the Caribbean. So our reputation for that kind of support is certainly what we look at. And then the last thing I just wanted to touch on, again, we know this group was going to be faculty more and instructional designers. We're not going to focus on this till we've got another session to dive into the integration, but those types of things, our integration is real time. As soon as a student changes with the registrar, does a drop or add with the registrar, immediately if the student walks out on their Moodle mobile device and pulls up Moodle, it's going to be updated in a real-time environment. And so we do types of things with gradebook and attendance. If you wanted to transfer your final grade from Moodle over to Colleague, we integrate with that. We are, for your information, what is called an Elution Alliance partner, which also means that we're working with their new Ethos project, and that's a new integration capability that will be out there. So we're the only Moodle partner that's working hand in hand as an Elution Alliance partner. We also talk about a delegate role. If you wanted to have oversight, this may be from a department chair perspective, if you wanted to say have oversight of all of the English courses that are offered at Southeast, we map that one time as part of our integration, and that's there every semester. So you don't have to go in and put people into specific courses with a specific role every term and spend a lot of time doing that. So if you would map everybody to your specific department, you would be able to go in and just have oversight on those courses if that's something that you wanted to do. We also use Moodle from a non-academic perspective. So if you had a club or something like that and wanted to say, okay, everybody that is part of a specific course, and there's some sort of an identifier in Colleague that you wanted to just say, put all students that have this category into that. And again, no cost for those. So that's all I wanted to do. It went a little bit longer than I thought, but we do have to question and answer session. But just to give an idea or flavor as to, eThink, and again, we've had 100 new clients in the last 18 months, and again, folks will tend to stay with eThink because of our responsiveness. And we like to think about it as, can we take Moodle and everything you know about Moodle today, and can we help you take that to the next level by some of the types of things that we add? And that's kind of a nice transition. And Courtney now, from our perspective, will show you some of the types of things that we've been able to do and things that were on your list that were provided for us. Okay? All right, it's all yours, Courtney.
The only challenge with using my computer to use PowerPoint is that I sit there and I think of a bunch of other things that I should probably do. So bear with me for just a moment.
That's true. We always say don't be intimidated by the number of tabs that Courtney will have open.
Yeah, so my apologies. So I thought I would go ahead and start from the user perspective, because obviously those of you in the room, that's what's most important to you. As Mark mentioned, I've been using Moodle for over 10 years at this point, working at institutions, assisting faculty, teaching classes in Moodle. So that's sort of the perspective I bring to this, okay? As Mark mentioned, please stop me and ask questions if you'd like, but I know that we have time for questions, and I'm going to try and zoom through and maximize the next half hour for us, okay? As I mentioned, I logged in as the student perspective. Can I do this? Is it going to mess it up if I just...
Yeah, you can hide that. You can hide.
Okay. So I've logged into one of my demo sites as a student, and so that's what you're seeing right now. I'm going to show you a few things here, and then I'm going to backtrack and just show you some other institutions, some sites and some features that they're using. What you're looking at right now is a user tour. So one of the things that Mark mentioned that we've been doing a lot of recently, many of our clients have changed their theme, they've upgraded their sites, kind of doing a refresh, a re-implementation, if you will. And so one of the things we've been assisting them with is building out things like user tours. This comes up automatically when someone logs in and just orients them to the site, kind of gives them the walkthrough on their own. We've also been working on these instructional designers. This may be of interest to you, or you mentioned thinking through how to sort of unify what different departments and programs are doing with their online courses. One of the other types of tours that we've been developing is some to orient faculty when they go in to set up their course for the first time. Kind of walk them through areas of the course, where to put things, suggestions for content that they may want to add or integrate. You're going to notice as we walk through a couple of different sites, different themes. So that is another thing to keep in mind. Your Moodle site may look different because it will take on your campuses and colleges and personality. Okay? One of the things that we'll do initially is work with you to pick a theme. I know that some of you have looked at this one before. This is Fortin that you're looking at right now. But we have clients using a wide range of themes. All of the themes that we use are responsive themes. We want your students and you to have a really great experience regardless of what device they're using. I taught for a while, and it was before mobile devices were really the thing. And it pains me to think about how much work they actually do on their mobile device now. However, we want to make sure we accommodate that because, at this point, we're probably not going to break them of it. So we want to make sure that they are able to be productive, they are able to get work done. On the flip side, I'll show you the mobile device, the mobile app in a few minutes. You can use this in the browser as the responsive design, but there's also a freely available Moodle mobile app. And so one of the things that we've been doing a lot as well is doing some training, some sessions with faculty and instructional technologists and designers to think about usability. So we all think about, we talk about accessibility and making sure that courses are accessible. But we also, on the flip side, have been talking a lot about universal design and making sure that the course content that we put out is going to be useful and usable by everyone. And that includes everyone on their mobile device. So those have been really big pieces there. A couple of other things that I want to go ahead and mention, and then we'll notice as we walk through. You'll notice that even with Forza, this has taken on the newer layout and design. So in terms of navigation, you have the slider tray on the side. So again, if you're on your mobile device, it feels the same as other sites. You'll notice that in this list, they still have some of those navigation elements. So you still have access to your dashboard, your calendar. We've been wrangling the My Courses lately, that list, to make it more useful and helpful for everyone. Remember, I'm in as a student, and so I just see the courses to which I'm enrolled. One of the other sort of changes that's been pretty effective for a lot of our institutions. So this is Anna's dashboard, and so a couple of things here. The course overview, this may have changed in your sites already, but the course overview has really been modified in the last couple versions. So now each of the courses that are in progress will show a little thumbnail to show me how far along I am in the course. So that's going to show if you are keeping track of completion settings in your courses. I noticed the sample courses, and we'll pull a few of those up. Sample courses, many of you are using completion tracking. So that completion tracking is going to flow into that icon for the student. The timeline view I find more useful for a lot of what I work on. And so this is where you're going to see a listing of the sort of your events, your requirements, the things you have on your list that need to be accomplished. One of the other things that's been added in 3.4 that some of you may be interested in is the remind me to grade. So when you're setting up assignments, you're setting up activities in your course, you're obviously putting up a due date for your students. You can also mark a remind me to grade as well. And so in addition to the capabilities of receiving notifications that students have submitted work, you also would see an indication here sort of reminding you that if you need the reminder. I think our students are pretty good at reminding us most of the time, but that would show up here. You'll notice that you have really quick access to jump in and continue work on any of those activities that are upcoming as well. A couple of other things is from the student perspective, and then I'll move on to a couple of other pieces. I know we're going to do a deeper dive on this, but I know that in the notes, we want to talk in a later session today about competency-based education. One of the other big things that we've been working on a lot with our institutions is implementing the competencies and competency frameworks into their sites. Moodle allows you to set up competency frameworks at the site level or the category level. Once you have those competencies outlined within the site, you can essentially tie those over to courses. So the courses where you're going to cover those competencies for a program. And then you can tie those even down further into the individual activities. And so what that does for you is creates a broader system. So you're not just thinking about one independent course at a time, but you can really see coverage of those competencies across a program or across a set of courses. So this is another area where we've been doing a lot of very specific work for institutions, and I can pull up some examples there if you'd like to take a look at that. I mentioned notifications. I just want to hit on this briefly. You'll notice that up at the top of the navigation, not only do you have your search bar, so if global search is important to you, we can have that working so you can search content, all content that you have access to. But up there, they've also added the notification and messaging components. These have always been in Moodle, but they've been really kind of tucked away. And so they've really brought those to the forefront, making sure that those notifications are more visible, and making sure that you can get to the messaging and have those more forward for you. Let me go ahead and jump from taking a look at this student user. I want to jump into a couple of client sites just to kind of give you a sense and kind of exposure to some other pieces that our clients are using. I mentioned different themes, different approaches. Again, we would work with your team to figure out what the best sort of theme fit is, what the best approach is, what you're trying to accomplish. As you can see with this one, they make a lot of their content, or at least sort of have a forward-facing sort of aspect to their site, where they're promoting orientations, they're linking to other content, kind of engaging the students and faculty prior to logging in. I think you guys mentioned that you're maybe on the more theme, which is pretty Spartan for the most part, which I love. We also have clients who, this one came over to us also on more, maybe even clean, and they've added some color and some excitement. You see it there, right? It was really branching out for them. But at any rate, we take the approach that this is your site. You know your institution, obviously, more than we do. And so we take your lead on making sure that the site is set up and configured like you want it. One of the other things that I know that we had discussed, and I think that you guys mentioned when we were just chatting this morning, the integrations are very important to us. One of the things that our team, when we talk about the SLA, most of the time the tickets and the things that are coming in to us aren't necessarily problems that you're finding. The platform is very solid. So it's very rare that there's sort of this large looming issue. A lot of what we get tapped for is conversations about how you want to use the system to integrate new things, and also setting up new integrations. So you guys use Zoom here. That's one of the first things that I'm sure we would turn around and set up in your site, is get Zoom to where it's now an activity or resource. You go in, you add it, your students have access to it. There's no sort of barrier there. We have quite a few clients who have their virtual classroom systems set up that way, whether it's Zoom, Adobe Connect, Blackboard, Collaborate even. So whatever sort of flavor your organization's using, we want to make sure that gets integrated. One of the other big things that I know we talked about was you guys have moved to ADFS for your authentications, going in through the hub for most things. And we want to make sure that that is still the case. So we don't want you to have to remember different passwords and type them in a million times. It just wastes everyone's time. You need to get in, get to what you need to do for class, and sort of move on. This institution came over to us as well. They're a colleague school. And one of the things that they just did is a re-implementation where they added on their seminary. So they originally came to us as their undergrad and grad programs, and I think their evening accelerated, and their seminary sort of held out and did their own thing for a while, and they were having such a good experience that they decided to fold everything into one site. And so we helped develop the plan to do that and move that work. I'm going to show you, because I know that you guys wanted to see moving content into the platform. One of the things to keep in mind is that because you are already in Moodle, we would migrate the whole entire site over initially. So there would be no work for faculty, for instructional designers, for technologists to have to go in and do any sort of migration work. We would basically move everything over wholesale for the site. And then we would begin the work of adding on, making changes, adjustments. So I think that's important. The other piece that's important to that you'll notice is that you are going to be able to move over sites. So if you have pulled down your Moodle site from 3 years ago and you want to re-upload it, you're welcome to do that as well. Okay. One of the other pieces, and then we'll go in and do a couple of couple of other demo things. I know reporting is, top of mind right now, making data-driven decisions, really understanding what's going on in the LMS. And so one of the things that Mark mentioned that we do pretty unique is we develop custom reports for our institutions. You'll see in this configurable reports block this whole list of reports, and I want to pull up a couple just so that you kind of get a sense. And then I have another couple that I want to show you. Many of these are very, well, I'll pull up a couple just so you can see. Let me pull up the eSyllabus one. So obviously the institutions have asked for these reports. We don't go in and wholesale add all of these. So if you have particular sort of boundaries, we're not going to push reports on you. What I mean by that is some of these reports, people are sort of mortified that, it feels like spying. But many of these are reports that are going to get at the data that you're trying to mine anyway. This one is just one example. They were moving to using the book resource to present their syllabus in all of their courses. It was sort of a project they were undertaking. And so one of the things they wanted was a report that would give them easy access to the print view of all of the syllabi. So now instead of faculty having to download the copy and remember to send it to the provost office, they were able to go in and just mine that data. So it basically lets me jump to the eSyllabus right there. No, really terrible. I guess I should have tested these before I jumped in. But it lets me jump right into it, and using another browser tool, they're able to download all of those syllabi all in one place. So just really kind of tapping into the power there. I know we're limited on time, so let me jump into your sort of demo site that we set up. So obviously this is very lightly branded. By no means what your site would actually come out looking like, but I just wanted to kind of give you a flavor and a feel for what might be possible. So you see some of those common things that I've mentioned here. The Moodle training courses are another big piece that we obviously like to provide to our clients. These would be put into your site so that you would have access to them. Again, your instructional design team can go in and make modifications and changes. As Mark mentioned, with our integration, one of the big things that people do like is this Moodle orientation for students. You may already have this in some form where you require students who are taking their first online course to go in and do some sort of orientation. And so many of our clients will use this and modify it if they have other requirements or changes that they want to see there. But these are self-paced courses. They give you the opportunity to use the Moodle tools within Moodle. Notice another tour just to kind of give people indication there. But being able to work through these, one of the other pieces that we do, as Mark mentioned, we upgrade everyone on their own time frame. So we would look to you and your schedule in order to decide when would be the best opportunity to run an upgrade for your site. When you do go through an upgrade, we make sure that you have the latest versions of all of these training resources. And as you'll notice here, we go through and indicate what's new for that particular version or since your previous version. That way you can just quickly skim. You don't have to spend a whole lot of time going through every single one if you don't want to. And we do issue badges for these. So we have this set up and configured so that it will issue a badge if you successfully complete that training course. And so we have some of our institutions who also use this when faculty are getting prepared to teach their first online courses in order to use those there. All right, let me do a couple of these other demo pieces that I know we need. Go back to them. So one of the other things here with the Fortin theme that's been applied is that, I'm just going to jump first. This is one of the sample courses that you guys provided. And so we've imported that. So you can see everything sort of all reworked and over here. We didn't touch anything. We just moved over, migrated that content. Say that?
Like you don't lose anything when you migrate.
As long as so usually what I measure, yeah, your Moodle to Moodle. So there may be a few things that Moodle Rooms is added on that are proprietary. Most of those they do release as plugins though. So we're able to install those plugins so that you pick up where you left off. The advanced forums is one example. So if you look in here, again, I didn't touch anything. So you'll notice that there are 2 announcements forums, and that's because there's one from the Moodle Rooms Advanced Forum, and then the regular forum is there as well. But all of that is in here and moved over. I mentioned the theme and how the theme might, have some other pieces that get offered. Some of our institutions use this theme and they really like this sort of top course management section. They feel like the navigation makes it easier for their faculty to jump in and make changes and get to things. And so that's another sort of addition that's part of the theme, if the institution likes that. Let's see. Have I covered any of these pieces that we were supposed to cover? Stephanie, are you trying to keep me honest on here? You're doing that. All right. Do you guys want to see us move over a course, or do you want to see something else? What's of most burning interest to you guys? Because I know that we're up about 5 minutes right now.
I'd like to see the grading.
Grading? Okay. I may need to jump into another course just so that we can have some grades and students enrolled in there. Gradebook obviously is, Moodle is Moodle. And so gradebook is going to be pretty standard. So what you see here is the gradebook setup. Again, I didn't touch anything as we came over here. And I also didn't look a whole lot in here at the way you guys have this configured. My guess is that we're using weighted mean. Just check. Yeah, weighted mean of grades. One of the some of our institutions have begun to use the natural grading method. So they find that it does give them the flexibility to do both the weighting and just the sum of grades kind of all in one place. So we've done some training courses and done some training materials to help people kind of make that change over. One of the other pieces that's been added in 3.4 is this idea of stealth activities. So I don't know how many of you, that big long list, if you offer a quiz for every, every course session, that list becomes insanely long. Some of our schools are looking at 3.4 and they're very relieved because you can now make those stealth activities. So you can basically hide them from view, but still have them as part of the content. So it's kind of, if any of you abandon does anybody do abandoned activities sometimes? You just like drop them to the bottom and then kind of hide that block. It makes it more official, more formal of a way to kind of clean things up there. In terms of grading and gradebook, like I mentioned, most of this is pretty, going to be pretty much the same to you. I will say that we have been spending a lot more time talking with people about using the single view and the user reports. That is a much easier way for people to operate. And so those have been really beneficial for our institution. Let me jump back into my demo site. Are you guys when you grade, are you using PDF markup when you're doing grade assignments? Some people do. Okay. That's been another piece. Some people who run Moodle have really struggled with that because the conversion, when it actually converts the files, but we have, I think we have successfully figured out the way to not make things dry. I just wanted to jump in so that you could see an actual assignment in that assignment grader window. There we go. So here's a lab assignment. And so this piece then will allow you to do the markup of the submissions. Is this the interface that you guys are familiar with? Okay, perfect. And so, you know, the important pieces there too, being able to pop out the rubric if you're using a rubric to give you more flexibility there. One of the other plugins that we've added, are you guys using a lot of rubrics? Hit or miss?
I teach English, so it looks a little different when we use the plugin because we tend to make lots of in-text comments, and it's not so great for that if you don't get it spaced.
Yeah.
So I think there's some instructors who use this a lot and develop their own rubrics and whatnot, and then I think there's instructors who just
just make general comments in there, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, a lot of different uses there. Something else I was going to say. Rubrics. So one of the other plugins that several of our institutions have been using with rubrics, you know that one of the challenges is if you want to get that information back out in terms of each of the pieces each component that you're actually assessing, it's very difficult because this kind of collapses the grade. It gives you a nice total and then away it walks. And so we've installed a plugin for a lot of our institutions so that you as a faculty member can go in and export that information out. So you get an Excel spreadsheet that has the breakdown of each of those segments. So that also has been really helpful for a lot who are really heavy rubric users. I know we are up on time.
I do have one question.
Yeah, please.
It always sounds like such a down and use question, but it really is.
That's all right.
And I've had several instructors in my department talk about it. Moodle messages, one of the issues is that there's no way to, say I'm teaching 4 courses, which a lot of our instructors teach 4 sections at a time, and you get these messages and they're just coming from everyone everywhere, and there's no, we would like to have a system that separates them by section. Because to be honest, we don't contact it unless we teach them. We don't contact us. And so that's been to kind of every quarter bring these people in, set them up on your contact list, and they're all undifferentiated by section. Big list of contacts. And then every quarter, then take them off and put the new people on. Is there any way in Moodle that it can happen?
That is an excellent question that I'm going to pose to my team this morning and see what they can find. Honestly, I will say that the number of, I'm actually excited to hear that you guys are using the messaging because I will say that a majority of our institutions, I find the faculty just use the discussion forums, and that's kind of the key. Or it sends it out in email. So they'll send the messages, but instead of using the messaging within here. They use announcements, they use bulk messaging a lot, so, go in, select all the students who have not submitted, and then send it that way. So it kind of bypasses that.
Now, we try to urge students to stay in messaging.
Yeah,
As a way to not have their messages buried in our regular.
No, I love it, and that's why I'm gonna ask.
But, and the other problem with messaging is you cannot attach a file. So if the student is messaging you because she was sick in class and wants to turn in her assignment, you have to send her back out to your email, because that student can't attach the assignment. I've never understood why. I mean, to me, that's just a basic function that teachers should have.
Yeah, let me make a note of it, because that sounds like a problem to me. One of the other things that you may or may not be super excited about, they've made some improvements to the calendar. So now if you're looking at the calendar and you can just drag and drop your assignments to a different date, and it will update the date and the due date and all those pieces.
And another question.
Yes. Uh-oh, I hit on calendar.
Oh, well, currently, advanced forums, you can open them on a specific date, but you can never close them in a way that ties to the calendar. And so either instructors have to manually put those dates in, or as what happens in my program, we just tell students not to pay attention to the calendar for their discussion. To actually go down the center page and find out what the dates are, because we as instructors don't have any way to end that ties to the calendar.
Right.
Sorry.
No, these are discussions I love, but my apologies, but now I want to go down this rabbit hole. Unfortunately, I've got a little time built into the schedule today for me to dig
Well, I
in.
pause the question.
No worries. Any other questions? Any other functional pieces? Yeah.
Since we're talking about the advanced form, how do you grade them? You have advanced, grader too?
Well, for advanced forums, you can pull in the dual grader if you still want to hold on to
Do you have
advanced
dual grader?
forums. We have several clients who do use it. But I will say that a lot of our institutions have moved toward just the standard forums, and then they use an assignment to do the rubric. We've still been working with HQ to put in the same sort of editing interface to forums as the assignments, essentially. So building in the rubric and those pieces, but doing it for the forums. So similar to the experience there. One of the things in talking about reports, one of the things that we've done is built a couple of other reports for some of our clients. So, more and more the use of forums is kind of all over the place. And so one of the things that this institution wanted, their faculty wanted, the ability to look across the entire course. So what this does is it gives them a summary bit of information, counts essentially for students to be able to take a look at the initiation and the replies and those pieces. But it takes a look all across the course, so they're able to then filter that and use that information that way. So I thought I would just mention that our reports aren't just sort of high level and on top down. We've done a lot for individual faculty types of reports. I'm going to go down that slippery slope and look at the questions that you asked in just a few minutes, but I know we're up on time, so I just wanted to see if there were other questions or other things that you need to see before you bug out of here. Yeah.
So talk about grading training. Is it based on theme? So does the training course get updated based on what theme the client's using, or is it just general training?
We do it as general. We use the Boost theme, so it's pretty standard. And then if you're using some of these other pieces, you're welcome to do some specific videos on how to use those components. If you're using that, for example, in Fortson, that slide out tray, we may have already created that and have it available to you as well. But it may not be your colors and your setups. All right, and now I want to dig in here. So please feel free to ask me other questions. I appreciate the time.
So agenda-wise, we had 1 hour as far as that, and then question and answers. You know, we'll dig into that or see what we can find out on those particular areas as well. But we'll certainly, we're not going anywhere till 2 o'clock. So, you know, if you want to take any questions offline as well and just ask something specific. The idea was that we'll just be here. So I don't know if, again, if you want to field all of those, or if folks only blocked off that first hour, or it's time to go, you know, whatever. But we'll certainly make ourselves available, and as we will do, we're digging in like we always do. So, any other questions?
If there aren't questions, maybe you could just go into showing some different plugins or features or items we may not be utilizing.
Okay. Okay. Are there any that through your work or through things that you've heard are available and have thought of using, or I mean, how many plugins or what's your world of plugins currently are you using? Turn it in, okay. That's pretty common. Yeah, we do that. Do you want to show someone? We have plugins available that we can show. Yeah, so
All the plugins from the open source tool, those are installable on your platform. We have a restricted list of plugins, or
no,
all the plugins from Moodle can be installed?
Yeah.
Request.
We will caution you. We work with some, so if we've come across a plugin that, you know, is not really well supported or is a little shaky, we'll tell you that, but we don't have that. And again, that maybe from some of the earlier remarks, it is an unlimited plugin model. So we're not having you share Moodle with somebody else. And again, that's a pretty big difference, is because in that shared Moodle environment, you know, if somebody uses a plugin that's going to negatively impact somebody else, there's only a certain set of plugins that are allowed. But because you're using Moodle in your own instance in eThink, we really don't have any limitation. And again, our approach is exactly what you're saying. You know, the idea is that open source makes all of those available to you, not just a select portion of those, and that's what we want to try to support for you. So if there's a plugin, you know, that, you know, people are kind of more geared out of day one when we go live, that, you know, they've then done some research. So the day that we go live, it's kind of like some people have gone to the catalog and found some things that as a university or as an institution you might want to use that can improve the entire experience. But there is no limitation as to the plugins.
What about the sites? So the default contract, how many sites do we get? One site, one production site, one test?
Right. We normally would have a production site. We generally, for people who are, you know, if you're going to be starting to go from 3.4 to 3.5 and you want a test site, we'll spin up a test site so that you can use that. If you wanted to test out a plugin, we'd generally have you in a test site to just say, a lot of times in Moodle, if there's something that you would like to attempt to do, there might be 2 or 3 plugins out there that would do that, and we'll load those both up and let, you know, a subset of your faculty or whomever take a look and say which of those plugins is going to better meet your needs. So that obviously doesn't need to take place in the production site, but could be spun up at a test site as you evaluate which direction you might want to go.
How does eThink partner with the general Moodle community, if at all?
We're in pretty good standing, you know, being a what's first of all called a certified Moodle partner. You know, a portion of our revenue, when you're a Moodle partner, a portion of our revenue goes and contributes to the ongoing support of Moodle. So we're supporting Moodle headquarters. When we added Canada as a region for us, more of our revenue went to support Moodle. And when we became the first Moodle partner in the Caribbean, again, another region, another amount of money. Thanks, Vicki. And so as a Moodle partner, you know, we have access to the releases, you know, on an early time frame, so we can start looking at that. We have access to, say, like when a lot of the user interface changes that have been coming out recently, we had access to that so that we could give input as to what we're hearing from our users about the user interface. We just came back from the Learning Technology Conference in London, and it was one of the first times where Moodle and eThink both had a booth in the same kind of a Moodle area. So we're kind of, even though we're not a Moodle partner in the UK, they were funneling folks that needed to talk Moodle over to us. And so I think we're, I would say, in a very favored position for the number of, again, clients who have come on board with Moodle and the reputation of support that we have. So I'd say of the Moodle partners, we're in very good standing.
As far as being a certified Moodle partner, does that allow you to sort of help with an agenda of features or anything for
Definitely.
core Moodle?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we're talking. You know, I think one of the recent invites we had Martin Dugiamas at one of our happy hours at one of our last and talked to our group. So I mean, we regularly get the ear of Martin, who is the CEO of Moodle. So we definitely are in constant conversations with them. So when we see something that we think would be out there, you know, it's definitely something that we have part of that conversation, and we definitely get input.
We also do, you know, direct engagement as well. So we're pretty active in the Moodle tracker in terms of, you know, finding issues that have already been reported, adding to, contributing to the conversation there. I'll give you one example that's just from this last week. One of our institutions, we met with their nursing faculty 2 weeks ago because they wanted a report. Okay, so we met with them to talk through the report and figure out what they needed. And once we began to talk to them, it became clear that part of the reason they needed a report was because Moodle had changed the way that the statistics report appears when you download the HTML. So the faculty were giving a quiz, and they were going to the quiz results in the statistics, and they were using the drop down and say download the report as HTML. And when it would come down, Moodle had dropped out the question text for identifier. So these poor faculty were looking at this crazy report and having to just figure out what these 4 answer choices correlated to within the quiz. And so it's a perfect example. We went into the tracker. It took us maybe 2 minutes to locate the problem and, you know, what had gone on. And so we reopened this because, of course, it had been marked as complete. We reopened it. We're adding to the conversation. and we've flagged it as, you know, partner and that this needs to be resolved. So, you know, that's another example of how we're trying to go back to headquarters, go back, contribute back information. Because frankly, there's so many pieces within the application at this point that, you know, things like that, I'm sure, you know, happen periodically. Things get dropped or missed, or they think, oh, nobody uses this. And so we want to make sure that we're always helping them evolve and resolve their issues, so that they're meeting the needs of people who are actually using the products. Does that give you a kind of a snapshot there?
Mm-hmm.
Trying to get my mobile device connected. Are you guys using the mobile app right now? Let's see if I can get that.
What would app you use? Or that's more?
There you go. Just, it just works with standard Moodle. So it's available free through the app stores. Can I use, is this a document camera?
Yes,
Can I use that?
sure.
Is that okay? That'll just be easier. I think because the wireless.
Yeah, we have a lot of folks that you know, want to take advantage of the Moodle mobile app, and so you know, again, we're trying to make sure that they use that. It is now 100% compatible. For the longest time, it was not everything in Moodle could you do on the Moodle mobile app. It is now 100% compatible. If you end up not having Wi-Fi availability, and you know that's going to be the case, you can actually download content, consume that offline, interact with that, and then integrate later. Courtney talked about the app as you see it there.
So Moodle mobile app available, just go into the App Store. And so there's now the latest versions of Moodle. If they go to it, if you go to it in the browser, it will actually give you a little pop-up that says this is available from the App Store. You should download it. That's so once you download it, the first time you go in, it's going to ask you for the URL and your credentials. It does work with ADFS, so basically it kicks you to the gateway, you plug in your credentials, and it kicks you right back. So the single sign-on still works there. And then, as you can see, it looks a lot like what we saw you know, early on when we logged in as that student. So I'm logged back in as Ana Delgado. So I was on the desktop earlier doing my work, and now I'm on my mobile device. So I see my list of courses here, and I can jump into any of them at this point. You'll notice it uses the sections. So if you're using weekly format, topics format, it's going to break those out neatly for you. They can jump obviously to the section that you want, so you don't have to open all of them, or you can open all sections if you wish. You'll notice that there are a few plugins. Attendance is one that we've been working, trying to pass a lot of information back to the developer and make sure that that gets integrated right into mobile. But if I needed to take attendance at this point, it's going to pop me over to the browser. But it does use a token so that I'm not having to log back in again. So it passed me over neatly. And so now if I want to take attendance, a lot of faculty are using their iPad to do this. So it just kicks them over nicely. They mark their sessions, and then they can roll back to the app if they want. Just giving them a nice sort of aspect here. As Mark mentioned, you notice the little cloud icon that is going to allow you to download a copy for offline viewing. So, you know, we have a lot of cases where this happens. You know, if it's documents, I should probably line this up. That's crazy. That might be helpful to you. So if you needed to download copies of these things for offline viewing, you've got bad connection, bad wireless, you don't want to spend the extra money on your data package, bring those files down, and then you basically have access to them at the ready. All of the features and functions work in here. So when you're talking about you know, discussion forums, You'll notice that this one requires 1 post and 3 replies, and no one's done anything in here yet. So I could go ahead and get started if I wanted to. Back up, and I just wanted to show you the assignment. This is, you know, I mentioned that I've used Moodle for a lot of years, and this is one of the pieces that excited me the most, was when it finally was easy for students to do some of the work on their device and then upload that content back in. So you'll see I've already submitted that, that Word document, but if I needed to add another file, it works right with my phone system. So if I've got shared files that I've done in OneNote or some other application on my phone local, I can push them into that shared files and then grab them from there. A lot of our you know, schools are using audio and video, so if you wanted to record with video, if you want your students to record audio snips for language learning, or you want them to record doing some piece of the activity and then upload it here, it just makes it really easy for them to do. And so, let's see. It's like I think we still loading. And so now it's just as easy as that for your students to upload assignments from their devices if they need to. I will say too, when we were talking about the messaging pieces, all of those functions are also here and available through the app as well. So if they receive any notifications, it will show up with a little red dot on your device, indicating that you have some notifications in there. And then also the messaging works within here. And I'm dying to go dig on your question. It's killing me. And you don't know how much it's killing me to stand here and keep talking, because all I want to do is go dig and see what answer we can find there. So all of my messages would show here as well. It doesn't look like Anna's done much in this course or site lately. Yeah. Just trying to remember who might be in the course. Nope, struck out. I'm gonna stop. Any other questions about this? One of the other things just to note is that you can also create some custom menu items in here as well. So for example, we've incorporated a link to the eThink blog just to demo what that looks like. So for some of our institutions, this is things like the pass over to the library, or you know, quick link to Moodle help, or whatever those kind of high priority things might be for mobile specifically. So those, the two things kind of work independently so that you don't have to, you can have resources that are available just in the mobile app that aren't visible, vice versa. Any other questions or comments or current frustrations that I can go dig on? Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Anything else?
Well, we will definitely look into those. Again, you know, our approach, and you know, we go by Moodle by eThink for a reason, as you can suggest, and our message to you is today is you know, take on what you already know at this point, and let's build on that. We sometimes, you know, just say let's refresh that and take that where we can help you take it to the next level, empower. We know a lot of time and effort has been put into this. There's a lot of knowledge of Moodle, you know, in the organization, and you know, the approach would be to build on that. And then we've had many organizations that have come on board to do just that. The good news is, as Courtney said, you're not going to lose anything. We're not migrating, and that's important to be clear on. We're not migrating a course at a time like we did for the course. We actually, the guy who is running our implementation team was at Moodle Rooms. He's been with us for like 4 years now, And so he knows Moodle rooms, he knows what we have to ask for, but we get a site backup from Moodle rooms. And we bring across the site. We're not taking a course at a time. We're taking an entire site and bringing that across. And that's why we don't lose anything. So when we bring that across, we've done that. We have what we call the implementation guide, which is one of the first things that we work with you. I can talk to that while Courtney is digging a little bit. But our migration, the process that we've perfected, there'll always be hiccups, but it's a 6 to 8 week process. So from the time an agreement is signed with eThink to the time that we can go live is a 6 to 8 week process, and we project manage the entire project. We're obviously going to take your input at us, and have conversations. We'll mock up, as Courtney said, some different themes and say, do we want to make an adjustment to the theme? What do you want that to look like? We'll run that back by us and you'll say, no, that's not quite right. That's not quite what we wanted. But we want to make that theme something that's engaging, something that's drawing people in to the system. But again, we'll let you know with that project plan, where do we need input? When do we need to talk to the IT folks about integration? When do we complete the discussion about theme? But we're managing that. We take the lion's share of the lift and just work with you as to exactly what that would be. But we can be live with all of the data that you've had in the past. The other thing that I don't know that we specifically mentioned, we might have shown it, is we don't cap space. In your current environment, your space is capped. You have a maximum that if you go over a certain amount of storage, you got to get the checkbook out again. We don't cap our space. So you could keep, when we bring your site over, obviously that'll be there. If you want to keep 8 years, 10 years of data on there, you can do that, which allows a faculty member to say, I remember I used a piece of content when I taught the course 5 years ago. You could go back and still grab that without doing a restore and trying to find that, in a different location. So we don't cap that as well. So 6 to 8 weeks for time to go live. Again, it's a process that we manage. Todd was at Moodle Rooms, like I said, so he knows exactly what the ask needs to be when that time comes, what that needs to look like, what we have to do when we get that, and how we take it from there. So it's what we do. We've mentioned we've done it quite a number of times already. I'll leave it at that.
Are there any things that are Moodle room specific that wouldn't come over or would need an additional plugin or something to accommodate something that faculty might be using today?
Yeah, we would normally, part of what we do, with so many folks coming over, some people are using different pieces of that. We would probably have that conversation to say, what are, the components that you're using. Moodle Rooms has contributed a lot of that, to the general population. And if you wanted to continue using that, we can certainly do so. Certain portions of it, again, depending on what those pieces are, if there's a list of what you're using, that's probably generally the easiest, so that we can share that with implementation and say, how have we done this previously? But as we saw, what Advanced Forums is now part of the general population. A lot of the clients of those 60 that came over, some were using that, but a good portion of that has come over. But for the most part, we've been able to, I think, accommodate, some of those. I think even like the grading tool or whatever, because Moodle Rooms, when Blackboard acquired them, stopped maintaining some of those and stopped improving some of those. Some of the more core products have actually moved beyond what some of those original plugins were designed to do. So I guess it kind of depends, but we'd be happy to take a list of what you're currently using and say, these are public, or, we can certainly implement those once they were contributed. But it hasn't.
I think you mentioned you guys are using the PLD for a few things. Do you know specifically what aspects of that you're using?
It's in terms, it's like an if-then sort of scenario where
Okay.
you complete a certain grade requirement, you can then get this next event unlocked and so forth and so on.
Within a single course or
Within a
cross
single
courses?
course.
Okay. Most of our institutions are using just the access restrictions to do that now. So within the course, you can set up access restrictions to either give or take away based on a lot of different logic. So completion of other activities or incompletion of other activities, date ranges, language selected. We do a lot, not necessarily with our higher eds, but we do a lot with our other, I call this other organizations. We do a lot with profile fields as well. So you were talking about a continuing education sort of scenario. And so if you had profile information in there about job title or other information, you could potentially funnel them to activities or resources based on some of that criteria as well.
Okay.
One of the plugins that Mark mentioned that we've all been geeking out about this past week, if this gives you any indication of my team.
How geeky we are.
This is what they're super excited about. There's finally a plugin that's super solid that does allow you to then chain courses. So as you know, in Moodle, courses have always, you can set completion up based on completion of other courses, but it doesn't limit access to the course. So essentially you could say, here are these 3 courses, you need to complete them. And so then that sort of triggers completion, but you have access kind of equally. What this plugin allows us to do then is put in those specifications. So you need to do unit, you need to do the first course, and then you get your enrollment pushed into the second course. You finish the second course and you can get pushed into the third course. So just allowing us to build some better models in terms of flow of people into courses that they need. Any other pieces of the PLD other than the access restriction piece that you can think of that you were using?
That's pretty much it. There was completion, you were given a certificate type of thing.
Yeah.
So it would generate that.
Yeah.
It's a certificate plugin.
But that, I think that could also be done through the what you mentioned,
Badges.
badges.
Badges or certificates,
Yeah.
either one. Yeah, we do. We work with both.
Yeah.
As far as gamification is concerned, is there any type of leaderboards attachments within?
Yeah, so depending on what you, can we geek out? Can I switch back to my?
Yes, go ahead.
All right. I'm back on one, right? Sorry. I don't get out on it.
Yeah.
All right, let me show you a few more things. So obviously not that this has to follow the same thing. Of course, I probably don't have access restrictions set up. Yeah, I do. So in this course, this is, this is an example of an instructor-led training type of course. But content obviously is agnostic and Moodle and bring in and change all that. But the piece that you were getting at was the availability restrictions. So in this case, it's set up that it's not available, so they can't get to the certificate until they've completed the prior activity. And again, we can chain that activity together as we want to. Let me turn editing on and just show you kind of some of those options. So the activity completion is one part of it, right? You guys are using some of that in some of the courses that I saw. Or it was just there by happen chance, which is also highly possible. This is one of the pieces. Did we talk about IntelliBoard? Did you guys look at IntelliBoard at any time for analytics and things? Some of our institutions are using a third-party analytics tool called IntelliBoard. It just gives you a lot of other reports and dashboards and these components for institutions that have that sort of area of need. And one of the frustrations, people always love the tool, they look at the reports, it looks all fancy, and then they realize how much work they need to put into their existing courses by turning on activity completion and setting those things up, because that's really what a lot of that stuff is tied on in terms of reporting pieces. The access restrictions are what we were just discussing, and as you can see here, we're able to do restrictions based on a lot of different things. Most of these are standard. The only one I think I've added in is the language one. But as you can see, it allows you to do a bunch of other things. One of the things that some of our institutions like a lot, our faculty like the role capability, because if they're team teaching or if they have lab coordinators or things like that, they're able to then put in answer keys and all of that stuff, and then do the access restrictions based on role instead of just hiding the activity. So it gives them a little bit more security to know that that it's really an access restriction versus just a hidden kind of element, of course. So these pieces on the access restrictions are let's come in here to show something else. What were we just talking about? Access restrictions, certificate. Right. There's something else.
Oh, the leaderboards and the gamification.
Sorry, I have to get around everybody's ATFS and say all of those words. So I thought I'd show you this one. This is not their, you asked about how many sites you get. This is not their main campus site. This is a particular online experience program that we host for them that they work on. So this has a module each month for their students to come in and complete. So it's a full program that's in here, but I thought I'd bring you in here to show you some of those pieces. So the completion progress is a plugin that is popular. A lot of institutions like it. It basically pulls all of these completion indicators from all up and down the course and puts them all next to one another in a nice tight little view. So I can see as a student which ones I've completed. If these had due dates on them, you would see the now sort of move across the line. And so it would turn red as the due date passed. So I would just get a nice visual of that. This level up is a plugin, which is what I pulled up, inspired by your question here. Several of our client sites use the level up. So what this does is allows you to essentially assign participation points or participation points is the easiest way to think about it. Embed those into different modules of videos and surveys and pieces within the course. And then as they complete those, they'll gain points here and then they level up to different levels. And so that does have a leaderboard associated with it, a ladder, and then obviously all of these pieces that I'm mentioning have reporting behind them. So there's always a report behind the scenes. We have another one. Do you do a lot of continuing ed stuff?
There's a couple.
Pull up one other. Here's one more kind of gamification piece. I know they use it on this one. So this is an organization out of Baltimore that is focused on high school students. And so obviously I'm in as an admin, so I'm seeing more than they would. But they're using a plugin called Stash. And so again, it allows them to embed kind of these little tokens, icons, pieces throughout the course. And as the students complete activities, that little piece comes available to them and they're able to pick it up and add to their stash. And so there's a block that goes along with that, like a block I removed. But again, you know, yeah, go ahead.
Do the Stash plugins translate well to the mobile app?
So that is one of the mobile app limitations that for every plugin, the plugin developer has to develop it. So it would give it to them when if they logged into the browser, so if they complete something on the app, when they logged into the browser, they would see it and they'd be able to pick it up at that point.
Do the redirect like the grading you showed earlier?
It might do the redirect. I can honestly say I've not logged into this site to test it.
Gotcha.
But it would at a minimum when I logged back in, instead of it saying that it wasn't available, it would just be there for pickup essentially. So I basically would have unlocked it on my phone, and then when I came in here, I'd be able to grab it. Good question, though. Anything else we can answer? I know we're just kind of, oh, thank you, Mark.
Talking about things being triggered, I think one thing they've talked about is like a student failing a grade being linked to additional content or a message being sent to like an advisor.
So definitely with other content, I know that some of our clients use this re-engagement plugin, and I want to say that I can look at it and verify, but I want to say that that can be triggered on like a failing grade or a sort of trigger that way. Should be better retention. Yeah. Tell me more about that while we're kind of blowing things up and just talking now. Tell me about your engagement with your student support staff. So librarians, academic success coaches, retention. What kind of engagement do they have now in the LMS? Any?
Right now, they're in our ILP block. An instructor can, in that list, is send a retention alert so they can select the student and sort of write from a drop-down list, decide what sort of issue it is, attendance, behavioral, and then write some sort of paragraph. And when they send that on, it gets passed along to our student success coaches, basically.
Okay. So that's another use to the ILP block that we need to, well, but that's for your colleague, the ILP block, that aspect of it? I believe it's, yeah, that's tied to that.
I'm sorry, I missed it.
In the ILP block, the retention alert, the retention component is that strictly through college, basically.
Good call, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Who was it, Vladimir?
And is the advisors are marked in colleague then? So the colleagues handling all that. This is just.
Yeah, the only instance.
Wow.
Of their own security.
And did I understand correctly earlier, you said you could bypass the ILP
I was gonna ask,
Yes.
block plugin?
did you find out that that's what better for other institutions?
That it's what verified?
Is it better to not have the LP and the colleague and not do it? We have kind of what.
Generally depends on usage. I mean, what we'll do is evaluate that. Both of our co-founders, just to give a little bit of a backdrop to that, both of our co-founders were with SunGard Higher Education before they started eThink. And so a big part of what they wanted when they kind of came into what our initial niche was, is integration needed to be better. I mean, people were spending way too much manual effort doing the types of things that needed to be done. So with our specific integration tools, we wanted to make sure it was a real-time, two-way integration. We didn't want to be transferring files. So we have it set up in our system that if you want it, allowed it to be set up, we go in as a read-only and look at the course and the enrollment file. And so when I, as a student, log in, I'm really just doing a quick view of the actual file. And if it hasn't been updated, like in the nightly run, it'll update it for me immediately. And so that's how we get real time. So it will go in and make sure that my registrations are current when I log in, to make sure it doesn't peak. But we're just doing a read-only access to the source, so that we can do that. And most people, because of our expertise and now our partnership with Solution, are very comfortable, allowing that type of access for what they get in return.
One of the issues that I don't know if you can ask questions.
Yeah.
Like Lori and I work a lot on this. She's the registrar, our registrar, Almanac side.
Okay.
But the configuration that we have right now doesn't allow all the data to flow in. So when she does some of the changes with her side, I still have to go manually, not all the topics automatically. So in your model by X and the IOP, how does that work? Like if she changes the course name, for example, will that flow in to eThink automatically, or I still have as an admin to go in and do that manual?
So of course you pick the one that we don't automatically update.
You don't-
Course name. Usually the course name holds. So
The time is a section change. Like it might change from being a hybrid class to a face-to-face class.
and so does that, it changes the name then? Does it change anything else?
It doesn't change the title of it, it just changes section
So
number.
it's still English 101, but then HB 42 instead of.
ML 40.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the short name has the location where the course is going to be held, right?
Okay.
And they have acronyms for locations or hybrid, if it's hybrid or online. So if you do that change on the name,
That won't be happening anymore. Right next time.
no, but it could be, the solution could be to just have generic name rather than having the name location. No? So
We're not going there.
We're
not going there.
So,
So in eThink,
yeah.
it's still not, that's not a problem to get them to be automated.
so obviously I would want to have a really in-depth conversation about this to figure out the right mix of things. Each client's configuration is for them. So the way that we configure your short names or long names, all of those is configured to you specifically. How we do your category structure is going to be to you specifically. I will say that currently, my understanding, and I can go back and ask them, is that in this case, that would actually, Moodle would see that as a new course, essentially, when you made that change, I believe. So,
Well, no, because the table's key is that
Is the
CS
same.
number,
Right.
so it stays the same. So basically, you can do these changes without affecting the tables that you have,
Okay.
either in Moodle, colleague, or private. Well, and let me take that back, because in Moodle, we use another key that is in the
Right.
in the colleague table, which is the iPad. It's still a unique key.
Right.
So the name can change. Because I go and change it manually, because it
Right.
stays the same form. It's just, I have to do that. And it's a lot of work. That's why I'm asking these questions. In your setup, that could change, that could become something automated. When you do a cheating colleague, or just cascade. You don't have to do something now. somebody else.
Let me make a note of it and see what our limitations are there.
And it's just one thing, we have so many other many things that we do that makes our life. You know, when you start doing manual things that's wrong to the big problems, the English, Irish. And for her too, because you have to do a lot of back and forth. And trying to make sure it's in the right, or if you need something.
That's some of that is what we're gonna walk through in the next session, right? Some of the integration.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the plan for 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
So can I take a quick bio break and then we can talk about, we'll look at, in more depth at the integration and how that looks, and is that good? Is that good?
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks.